Hello. If you've done the tutorial on mission modding, you may have had some problems with the digging part. I'll try to provide a little more information about that part. This is the part of the tutorial that you have already tried or maybe even done. This part asks you to build a submission in the mission editor window, and then you open the digging window and start configuring, and you are trying to make an actual visible construction pit. Let's have a look at how this is done and exactly what are the concepts here. This is the Unity editor, and on the right is the mission editor, which is an inspector window that has been made especially for the objects of the game. On the left is the scene window where we see the visible objects. We will use both windows in order to make this digging condition. Let us begin by setting the scene window. First of all, as suggested in the tutorial, we will select stage 3 because stage 3 gives us a floor plan of the house at the same height as the digging terrain, which is just what we need. The other floors are either under the ground or over the ground, which will give us problems if we try to use that as a template. It is very important that we go out of perspective view, which is the one I selected right now, and if I click again here under the 3D gizmo, I am now in isometric view, which is what we need. Then we want to look at the terrain from the top, so we click on the little green Y-axis on the gizmo. Now that we have our scene set up, let's have a look at the digging condition here on the right in the mission editor window. Clicking on the digging icon opens this inspector window. This window has several parts. The top part is parameters. Basic parameters that we will need to set a little bit later. Advanced options are not necessary in this tutorial for digging. And this red text shows us that we need to set up some data points because right now the object is empty and there is nothing to save in the mission. We will use the tools in this bottom part here and the scene window to set up our visible digging pit that the player will see when he's finished digging. Right, so if you've been trying again earlier, then you've probably created a lot of data that is now unnecessary. So the first thing we'll do is click on the setup button and then click on the clear condition data button. And yes, we're sure this will clear all the data that is not shown in this inspector, but it is the data that makes the digging pit. And we will click on the reset digging terrain, and yes, we're sure. And the digging terrain is what we see in the scene window, so we are sure that we have a clean slate to start building our pit. Okay, now if we click on tools, we have some tools for making our digging pit. First, we need to create a polygon, which the game will call the designated area and which the player will see as 4 spikes or 4 or more spikes with a purple ribbon in between. The window tells us that we need to use Control and click on the terrain to build the polygon. So I bring my mouse pointer in the left window here and I control click about half a meter outside the house outline, because if I click directly on the house outline I will end up with a digging pit inside the house's basement, which is not what we want. Next, we need to set the height of the digging pit. Of course, since it is a pit, it's going to be underground, so we need to slide down to around minus 3 meters, which is the height of a floor and the wall prefabs that we are using to build basically all the constructions in this game. And now that the height is set, we can use or not use do smoothing. We'll see what it does. Let's say we don't use do smoothing, and then we click on the set height button and we wait for up to a few seconds while the editor is making the digging pit object. Once it's done, it is very clear on the left window that this object is done. Now, the part that most people are forgetting is before doing anything else, click on Setup and click on Save, because the visible object is only in the scene window. It is not saved as data points in our digging condition object. So by clicking on Save, I will make this red text disappear. Now the editor is happy. We have data points and we could just end this right now and go try our digging condition in the game, and it would work. So the object that we created here, if we go around, is the finalized digging pit that the player will see when he finishes digging and moves out of the area. What was the difference for using or not using the do smoothing is that you will see that the pit is very square. It looks as it had been dug by the best excavator operator in the world. It is not very realistic, but it is perfectly satisfactory. Anyway, the player will never see anything else than the outside walls of the pit, because if you remember, once this pit appears in the game, immediately the game will also put stage 1, the stage 1 concrete floor there for the next submission, which is about pouring some concrete. So this bit is okay, but just for curiosity's sake, let's look at what we can achieve if we use do smoothing. So I want to erase the pit. I will click on Reset Digging Terrain and see what happens when I do that, and clear condition data. So my red text appears again. I go back to Tools and I will select minus 3 meters again, and this time I will go a little deeper than 3 meters because the smoothing will round the edges. So let's use set height and we wait a few seconds, and here's our pit. And this time, don't forget to save the data, and this time you will see that the bottom and the sides are rounded a little bit. This sometimes have undesirable effects of, as you can see here, putting a little bit of earth in our concrete. So I could have selected maybe 3.2, 3.3 meters. Anyway, this is quite good. So we're ready to go to the next step. By the way, the tutorial tells you that you can use these tools here, circle and smooth, to sculpt the pit a little bit. This is honestly not very needed and complicated for no reason. This is a tool that we will use more when we are going to make a pile dirt, as in a wheel loader submission. So basically we don't want to mess with these tools right now. This is a more advanced topic. So now is the time to set our digging conditions parameters. What is in the mod mission tutorial is perfectly good. Here what will happen is after 20% the player will be provided with the option to stop digging, and after 50% again an option to stop digging. The hardcore player will go all the way to 90%, which is a huge amount of digging. So this pit is 10 meters by 10 meters by 3 meters. That's 300 cubic meters of dirt. The bucket is about 1 cubic meter in volume. So you need about 300 cycles to dig the pit. At around 10 seconds a cycle, you're at 3000 seconds, which is almost 1 hour. So apart from that, as it says on the tutorial, we will activate step A at around 50%, step B at around 20%. Now, we don't want to make this possible with the small excavator, because there is no way that a small excavator can dig this pit in the next few hundred years, and also it doesn't reach 3 meters deep, so there is no chance that the player can finish this task. What are the next options? These are interesting. Set target height means show the pit, basically build the pit. So this first option here says show the completed pit when the player has reached 20 or 50 or 90%. So he's finished digging. This is a little bit brutal because most probably the excavator and the player will still be in the pit area or at the edge of it, and suddenly the ground will disappear under its tracks. So we want to select here show the pit at the end of condition, which means when digging is finished here and the player has cleared the area with his excavator and possibly his half-pipe truck too. So this is for digging pits with excavators. This is the condition, this is the parameter that we will always enable. And the last one is show the pit on start of condition, which doesn't make sense for an excavation task, because basically when the player will come to the terrain, the pit is already dug and the condition is already satisfied. So we don't want to set the target heights on start of condition in this case. We will use that when we make a dirt pile for the wheel loader, because then the dirt pile has to be visible before we start digging with the wheel loader. So that's for probably another tutorial. So that's all there is to it. By now saving the scene and exporting this to a mission, you should be able to use this digging condition. Thanks for watching.